The ship came on a cold November morning. It was so big that people thought the sun had gone dark. Shadows fell across entire countries. Birds stopped singing. Dogs howled in the streets. Children pointed at the sky and asked their parents what was happening. Nobody had an answer. Commander Daniel Carter was eating breakfast when the call came. He put down his coffee and listened to the voice on the other end. The voice was shaking. Daniel had never heard General sound afraid before, but today the old soldier sounded like a scared child. "Get to the emergency center," said. "Now, this is not a drill." Daniel drove through streets filled with people looking up. Traffic had stopped everywhere. He saw car accidents where drivers had simply forgotten to watch the road. Everyone was staring at the massive shape in the sky. It was silver and black, covered in strange patterns that hurt the eyes. It was bigger than any mountain, bigger than any city. It hung in the sky like a dark moon that had wandered too close to Earth. When Daniel reached the United Nations emergency chamber, he found chaos. World leaders were shouting at each other on screens. Military officers were running back and forth with papers and tablets. Admiral Laura stood in the middle of the room, trying to bring order to the mess. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded naval fleets for 30 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. "Carter," she said when she saw him, "good, we need clear thinkers right now." "What do we know?" Daniel asked. "Almost nothing. It arrived 2 hours ago. No warning. No signals we could detect before it showed up. It just appeared like someone switched on a light." Secretary General Christopher Hayes walked over to join them. He was a thin man with tired eyes. He had spent his career solving problems between nations. Now he faced a problem from beyond the stars. "They sent a message," Hayes said. "Or rather, they are sending it on every channel, every language. They want us to hear them." He pressed a button, and a voice filled the room. It was deep and cold, like stones grinding together at the bottom of the ocean. The words were English, but they sounded wrong coming from that voice. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Al of the Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You will provide tribute, minerals, water. 1 billion of your kind to serve as workers. You have 100 hours to agree. Resistance is not possible. We have conquered 2,000 worlds. None have refused. None have survived refusal. Choose wisely." The message ended. The room was silent. 1 billion people, Laura said quietly. "They want us to hand over 1 billion people as slaves." "And minerals and water," Hayes added. "They want to drain our planet while taking our people." Daniel walked to a computer terminal and began pulling up the data that technicians had gathered. He looked at the readings from satellites and ground stations. He studied the energy patterns coming from the alien ship. Most people in the room were focused on the message and its terrible demands. Daniel was looking at something else entirely. "Admiral," he said after a few minutes, "come look at this." Laura walked over and looked at the screen. "What am I seeing?" "Their ship. Look at the energy readings along the hull." Laura studied the patterns. Her eyes widened slowly. "Those are damage marks. Old ones, but damage marks. Their ship has been in battles." "More than battles," Daniel said. "Look at the pattern. These are not marks from one fight. These are marks from running, from many fights over a long time. Whoever shot at this ship, they did not stay to fight back. They ran." Laura looked at Daniel with new understanding. "You think they are running from something?" 2,000 worlds conquered, Daniel said. They called themselves an empire. Empires do not run. They stand and fight. They send messages demanding surrender because they are strong. But look at this ship. It is covered in scars from battles they fled. Why would the greatest empire in the galaxy run from anything? Secretary General Hayes had been listening. He joined them at the terminal. "What are you suggesting, Commander?" Daniel turned to face both of them. "I am suggesting that they are not here because Earth is valuable. I am suggesting that they are here because they are hiding. They are running from something bigger and more dangerous than they are. and they want to use Earth as a shield. The idea spread through the room like fire. Officers began looking at the data with new eyes. Scientists confirmed what Daniel had seen. The damage on the ship was consistent with weapons far more powerful than anything they themselves used. Something out there could hurt the mighty empire. Something could make them run. Admiral Al sent another message an hour later. This time, his image appeared on screens around the world. He was tall, with gray skin and eyes that glowed like hot metal. He wore armor covered in symbols that might have been medals or warnings. He spoke again of the tribute Earth must pay. He showed images of planets that had refused and were now dead rocks floating in space. But Daniel Carter was not listening to the threats. He was watching the Admiral's eyes. He saw something there that the alien probably did not know he was showing. Behind the arrogance and the cold demands, Admiral Al was afraid. He was very, very afraid. Daniel gathered a small group of people he trusted. Laura was there. So was Captain, a pilot who had flown the most dangerous missions Earth's military had ever attempted. Doctor joined them. She was a physicist who understood energy patterns better than anyone alive. "We need to know what they are running from," Daniel told them. "If we can find out, we might have a chance." "A chance at what?" asked. "We cannot fight them. Our weapons are toys compared to theirs." "We do not need to fight them," Daniel said. "We just need to make them run. They are already afraid of something. We need to find out what." Doctor nodded slowly. "If we can identify the threat, perhaps we can use it, turn their fear against them." "This is insane," said, but he was smiling as he said it. "I love it." Laura looked at Daniel with something like hope in her eyes. For the first time since the shadow fell over Earth, someone had an idea that did not end in surrender or death. "Get me everything we have on that ship," Daniel ordered. "Every scan, every reading, every piece of data. Somewhere in there is the answer. Somewhere in there is the thing that makes an empire of 2,000 worlds afraid to stand and fight." The work began. The clock was ticking. 100 hours to find a way to make the monsters run. Earth's first contact with alien life had begun with a demand for tribute. But Commander Daniel Carter was already planning a different response. He was planning to show the galaxy what humans did when someone tried to make them kneel. They found a way to fight back. Doctor had not slept in 40 hours. Her eyes burned and her hands shook from too much coffee, but she could not stop working. The fate of every person on Earth depended on what she found in the next few hours. She sat in a dark room filled with computer screens. Each screen showed different data from the ship. Energy readings, heat patterns, communication signals. Somewhere in this ocean of information was the answer Daniel Carter needed. "Found something," she said suddenly. Daniel was at her side in seconds. "What is it?" Pointed to a pattern on one of the screens. "I have been listening to their communications, not the public demands they broadcast to Earth, the private signals between their ships. They have more than one ship. 17 hidden behind their moon. I found them by tracking energy shadows. They are smaller than the main ship, but still massive by our standards." Daniel studied the data. Why hide them? If they want to scare us, why not show us their full fleet? "Because their fleet is damaged," said. "Badly damaged. Most of those ships cannot fight. They are being repaired. And there is something else. A word they keep repeating in their communications. The translation software had trouble with it at first, but I think I have it now." She typed a command and a sound file played. The language was harsh and ugly, full of sounds that human throats could not make. But one word came through clearly, repeated again and again with obvious fear. "The swarm," said. "That is what they call it. Whatever is chasing them, they call it the swarm." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The word alone carried weight and terror. He could hear the fear in the voices when they spoke it. These creatures had conquered 2,000 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations. and they were running like scared rabbits from something called the swarm. "We need to know more," Daniel said. "Can you find any details? What is the swarm? Where did it come from? Why is it chasing them?" Shook her head. "Their communications are careful. They do not talk about it directly. It is like a forbidden subject. But I can tell you this, they are not just afraid of the swarm. They are terrified. These are soldiers, warriors who have fought across the galaxy, and they speak of the swarm the way a child speaks of monsters in the dark." Captain entered the room with Lieutenant Tors, his communications officer. Was young but brilliant. She had a gift for understanding patterns in data that others missed. "We found something too," said. "One of our satellites caught a damaged probe drifting at the edge of the solar system. It is old and broken. We think it was sent ahead of the fleet to scout our system." "Can we recover it?" Daniel asked. "Already done. A team brought it down 2 hours ago, has been working on its memory banks." Stepped forward. She looked nervous but excited. "The probe contains navigation data. It shows where the fleet has been over the past several years. They have been running in a long circle around the galaxy, never staying in one place for more than a few months." She pulled up a map on one of the screens. A line traced across the stars, showing the path of the Empire's retreat. It was not the path of conquerors. It was the path of prey being hunted. "They lost more than half their fleet in the first year," continued. "The data shows battle after battle, always ending with them running. The swarm follows them wherever they go. It finds them no matter how they try to hide." "Why come to Earth?" Daniel asked. "We are not exactly hidden." Had been working while they talked. Now she looked up with understanding in her eyes. "Because we are primitive. The probe's data shows that the swarm ignores worlds that have not developed advanced technology. It only attacks species that have spread beyond their home planet and shown aggression." "They think they can hide behind us," Daniel said. "They think the swarm will pass by Earth without noticing because we have never left our solar system." "Yes, and while the swarm moves on, they can rebuild their fleet, drain our resources, and then continue running." The room was quiet as everyone understood what this meant. They did not care about Earth. They did not want to rule humanity. They just wanted to use Earth as a hiding spot while they recovered. And when the swarm eventually found them again, they would leave, taking whatever resources and people they wanted, leaving Earth to face the consequences. "We cannot let them hide here," said. "If the swarm finds the near Earth, we will be caught in the middle." "But we cannot fight the either," pointed out. "Their weapons would destroy our cities in minutes." Daniel walked to the window and looked up at the sky. The massive ship still hung there, blocking the sun. Somewhere up there, Admiral Al was waiting for Earth to surrender. He expected humans to do what every other species had done, bow down and accept their fate. But Daniel was not thinking about surrender. He was thinking about the swarm. "What if we do not fight he said slowly. "What if we make them fight themselves?" The others looked at him with confusion, was the first to understand. "You want to call the swarm," she said. It was not a question. "They are hiding from something that has chased them across the galaxy. They came to Earth because they thought they would be safe here. What happens if they are not safe? What happens if the swarm finds them?" "They run," said. "They leave and find somewhere else to hide." "Exactly. We do not need to beat them. We just need to scare them. We need to show them that hiding near Earth is more dangerous than running, and the only thing that scares them is the swarm." Raised a practical concern. How do we call something we do not understand? We do not even know what the swarm is or how it tracks was already working on her computer. The probe data might tell us. If the swarm has been following them for years, there must be a pattern, something it tracks, a signal, an energy signature, something. Hours passed as they worked. The deadline Admiral Al had given was getting closer. World leaders sent increasingly desperate messages asking what was being done. Some countries were already talking about accepting the tribute demands. 1 billion people was a terrible price, but it was better than everyone dying. Finally found it. Energy signatures, she announced. The swarm tracks a specific energy pattern that ships produce. It is like a fingerprint. Every vessel leaves a trail that the swarm can follow. Can we reproduce that signature? Daniel asked. Thought for a moment. Not exactly, but we might be able to amplify it. If we can capture a sample of energy and broadcast it into deep space, we could act like a beacon, a signal saying they are here. Laughed, though there was no humor in it. You want to ring a dinner bell for the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. I want to make the run, Daniel said. Once they are gone, we can deal with what comes next. And what if the swarm does not care that we are primitive? What if it destroys Earth anyway? Daniel Met's eyes. Then we die fighting instead of living as slaves. I know which one I prefer. The pilot held Daniel's gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Tell me what you need me to do. The team began building their plan. They would need to get close to a ship to capture the energy signature. They would need to build a beacon powerful enough to send the signal into deep space. And they would need to do all of this without the noticing. The clock continued to count down. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. But for the first time, the people in that room felt something other than despair. They felt hope. The plan was dangerous. The plan was possibly insane, but it was the only plan they had. Captain sat in the cockpit of the Horizon, Earth's most advanced stealth ship. It was small and fast, built to slip past radar and sensors. Nobody knew if it could slip past technology, but they were about to find out. His crew was small. Lieutenant Torres handled communications and sensors. Sergeant Price, a combat engineer who had survived more impossible situations than anyone could count, sat ready at the weapons console. Doctor was in the back, watching screens full of data and preparing the equipment that would capture the energy signature. Launch in 60 seconds, came the voice of Admiral Laura from Mission Control. If this goes wrong, we will do everything we can to get you out. Understood, Admiral replied. He did not believe her. If they caught them, no rescue would be possible, but it was nice of her to say it. The Horizon launched from a hidden base in the mountains. It climbed through the atmosphere, staying on the dark side of the planet to avoid detection. The massive ship hung in space like a metal planet. Around it, the hidden fleet of damaged vessels waited for repairs. Guided the Horizon slowly, carefully. The ship's stealth systems were working hard to make them invisible to sensors. Every second, he expected alarms to sound and weapons to fire. But they were not looking for small ships. They were looking for military fleets, space stations, threats they could recognize. A tiny Earth vessel was beneath their notice. Getting close to their outer ships, reported. Energy readings are strong. Are you getting what you need? Almost, replied. Her voice was tight with concentration. I need to be closer. The signature is layered. I need to capture all the frequencies. Brought the Horizon closer. They were now flying between warships, each one capable of destroying them with a single shot. Hands hovered over the weapons console, though they all knew the Horizon's weapons would be useless against these enemies. A little more, said, just a little more. An alarm beeped on console. We have a problem. One of their ships is starting a sensor sweep. If it reaches us, they will see through our stealth. Made a quick decision. He pushed the Horizon forward directly toward the nearest ship. You have 10 seconds. What are you doing? Demanded. Hiding in their shadow. Their own ship will block the sensor sweep. It was a crazy move. They flew so close to the hull that could see individual panels and markings. Strange symbols covered the alien metal. Some looked like warnings. Others looked like battle honors. All of them reminded that he was very small and very far from home. Got it, announced. I have the complete energy signature. We can go. Pulled the Horizon away, using the ships as cover. Slowly, carefully, they made their way back toward Earth. No alarm sounded. No weapons fired. They had done the impossible. When the Horizon landed back at the hidden base, Commander Daniel Carter was waiting for them. He shook his hand and then looked at. "Can we build the beacon?" he asked. Nodded, though she looked exhausted. "Yes, I have everything we need. Give me 48 hours. But they did not have 48 hours. Admiral Al's deadline was only 30 hours away. The world's leaders were growing more frightened by the minute. Some countries had already started selecting people to hand over as tribute. Families were being torn apart. Protests filled the streets. Daniel called an emergency meeting with Secretary General Christopher Hayes and Admiral. He explained the plan in simple terms. Build a beacon that would broadcast the energy signature into deep space. When the swarm detected it, they would come. And when they saw the swarm coming, they would run. Hayes listened with growing horror on his face. "You want to invite an even bigger threat to our planet." "I want to make the current threat leave," Daniel replied. "The swarm only attacks species that have spread across the stars and shown aggression. Earth has done neither. We might be safe." "Might be," Hayes repeated. "You are gambling with 8 billion lives on might be." "I am gambling with 8 billion lives no matter what we do. If we surrender, 1 billion people become slaves and the rest lose their freedom forever. If we fight, we die. If we do nothing, they eventually drain our planet dry. The only chance we have is to make them run." Admiral spoke up. "Christopher, I have studied the data. They are already damaged and afraid. They came here to hide, not to fight. If they see the swarm approaching, they will not stay to battle both the swarm and us. They will do what they have been doing for years. They will run." Hayes looked at both of them for a long moment. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. 8 billion lives, the future of humanity, all resting on a plan that could work or could destroy everything. "Do it," he finally said. "Build the beacon. But Daniel, if you are wrong about this, history will never forgive you." Daniel nodded. "If I am wrong about this, there will be no history left to remember." The next 30 hours were the most intense of Daniel's life, and her team built the beacon in record time. It was not elegant or pretty. It was a machine of wires and metal and desperate hope, built from parts stolen from military bases around the world. Captain Palmer, commander of Earth's orbital defense grid, found a way to launch the beacon without the noticing. He used an old satellite launch window, timing it perfectly with a rotation of the alien ships that left a small gap in their sensor coverage. While the beacon was being built, Lieutenant Reed worked on the message that Earth would send to Admiral Al. She was a young woman with a gift for understanding how others thought. She studied everything they had said, every message they had sent, trying to understand what would make them afraid. "They respect strength," she told Daniel. "Not kindness, not reason, strength. If we show weakness, they will crush us. If we show strength, they might hesitate." "We do not have strength," Daniel pointed out. "Our weapons cannot hurt them." Smiled. "They do not know that for certain. And more importantly, we know something they do not want us to know. We know about the swarm. We know they are running. That knowledge is a weapon." Daniel understood. The message was not about threatening them with human weapons. It was about threatening them with something far worse, the truth. The beacon launched successfully, slipping into deep space without detection. It began broadcasting the energy signature, a silent cry into the darkness. Somewhere out there, something was listening, something that made empires flee. Now came the second part of the plan, the message. Daniel stood in a broadcast room, facing a camera. His words would be sent directly to Admiral Al and recorded for history. He took a deep breath and began. "Admiral Al, I am Commander Daniel Carter of Earth. You came to our world demanding tribute. You threatened our destruction. You expected us to kneel like the thousands of worlds you conquered before. You were wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We know what you are running from. We know about the swarm. We know you came here not as conquerors but as refugees, hopping to hide behind our primitive world while you rebuild your strength. That plan ends now. We have sent a beacon into deep space, broadcasting your location to everything that listens. The swarm knows where you are. They are coming. Daniel leaned forward, his voice hardening. You have 72 hours to leave our solar system. After that, the swarm arrives. You can stay and fight them if you want, but we both know you will not. You have been running for years. You will run again. The question is whether you run now while you still can or wait until it is too late. He straightened up, his final words carrying the weight of an entire species. The Empire demanded tribute. Earth's response is this: flee while you still can. The message ended. The broadcast was sent. Now all they could do was wait and hope that the monsters ran. Admiral Al watched the human's message with cold rage burning in his copper eyes. Around him, his officers stood in silence, waiting for their commander to speak. None of them dared to breathe too loudly. They know about the swarm, said Subcommander, breaking the silence. How is that possible? Al did not answer. His mind was racing through the possibilities. Someone had talked. Someone had been careless with communications. Or perhaps these primitive creatures were not as simple as his scouts had reported. It did not matter now. What mattered was the threat. Is it possible? Asked. Could they have really sent a beacon? Al turned to his sensor officer. Scan for any signals leaving their system. The officer worked for several minutes, then looked up with fear in his eyes. My lord, I am detecting a broadcast signal approximately 3 light hours from our position. The signature matches our own energy patterns but amplified. It is broadcasting our location into deep space. The bridge went very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The swarm could detect energy signatures across vast distances. If the beacon was real, if it was truly broadcasting their location, then the swarm would find them, just as it always found them, just as it had found them on every world where they tried to hide. Destroy the beacon, Al ordered. The beacon is too far away, the sensor officer replied. By the time our weapons reach it, the signal will have spread too far. The swarm will already know. Al slammed his fist against his command chair. The metal bent under the impact. These humans had done what no other species had dared. They had not surrendered. They had not begged. They had fought back with the only weapon they had: knowledge. Then we destroy them, Al said. We burn their cities. We show them what happens when insects challenge the Empire. My lord, said carefully, if we take time to destroy them, we lose time to run. The swarm could be here in days, perhaps hours. I will not flee from primitives, Al roared. I will not let vermin defy the Empire and live to tell the story. He gave the order. The main guns of his flagship began to power up. Targeting systems locked onto 3 of Earth's largest cities, Paris, Tokyo, and each city held millions of lives. Each would be reduced to ash and memory. On Earth, alarms screamed in military bases around the world. Admiral Laura watched her screens fill with warning signs. The ship was charging weapons. They are going to fire, she said. Daniel, they are going to fire on our cities. Daniel Carter felt his heart stop for a moment. He had gambled that they would run when faced with the threat of the swarm. He had not expected them to lash out in rage first. Get everyone to shelters, he ordered. Now, every city, every town, get everyone underground. But there was not enough time. There was never enough time. The first blast hit Paris. A column of blue fire descended from the sky and struck the heart of the city. Buildings that had stood for centuries vanished in an instant. The tower melted like a candle. The Seine River boiled away to steam. 2 million people died before they could even understand what was happening. Tokyo was next, then 3 great cities gone in less than 5 minutes. Daniel watched the reports come in with tears running down his face. He had done this. His plan had brought this destruction. Millions of people were dead because he thought he could outsmart an empire. Admiral put her hand on his shoulder. "This is not over," she said. "We still have a chance. The beacon is broadcasting. The swarm is coming. We just need to survive long enough." "Survive?" Daniel whispered. "They just killed millions of us. They can kill millions more whenever they want." "Then we make them stop wanting to," replied. "Activate the orbital defense grid. I know our weapons cannot hurt them, but maybe we can make them think twice before firing again." Captain Palmer's defense grid opened fire on the flagship. Missiles and energy beams streaked up from Earth's surface. They splashed harmlessly against the alien shields, but for a moment, just a moment, they paused. Admiral Al looked at the primitive weapons striking his ship. They could not hurt him, they could not even scratch his shields, but they made him think. These humans were fighting back. Even after seeing 3 of their cities destroyed, they were fighting back. It was foolish. It was hopeless. But it was also something Al had never seen before. Every other species that had conquered had surrendered after the first demonstration of power. They had begged and pleaded and offered everything they had. The humans were different. The humans were firing back. And then the sensor officer spoke the words that changed everything. "My lord, I am detecting new signals at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts, hundreds of contacts, thousands of contacts." Al turned to look at the sensor display. His blood, if could be said to have blood, went cold. They were coming. The swarm was coming. They had responded to the beacon faster than he had thought possible. Already, the sky at the edge of the solar system was filling with shapes. Not ships exactly. Something stranger. Something alive. "How long until they reach us?" Al asked. "At their current speed, less than 6 hours. 6 hours. 6 hours to fight or run. 6 hours to decide the fate of his fleet." Al looked at the planet below. 3 cities burned. Millions of humans were dead, but billions remained and they were still fighting, still sending their pathetic weapons against his shields, still refusing to give up. He could destroy more cities. He could kill more humans. He could reduce their entire world to ash before the swarm arrived. But what would that accomplish? The swarm was coming regardless. Every minute spent punishing these insects was a minute not spent escaping. "My lord," said quietly, "we must go. The fleet is damaged. We cannot fight the swarm, not here, not now." Al wanted to refuse. He wanted to make these humans pay for their defiance. He wanted to show the galaxy that no one challenged the Empire and lived. But he also wanted to live. "Prepare the fleet for jump," he said finally. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. "We leave in 1 hour." On Earth, Tors detected the change first. The fleet is moving. They are changing formation. They are preparing to leave. Daniel could not believe it. It worked. "Something else is happening too," continued. Her voice carried a mix of wonder and fear. "I am detecting contacts at the edge of the system. Thousands of them. They are coming fast." The screens filled with images from Earth's telescopes. The swarm was visible now, even from this distance. It looked like a cloud of darkness moving between the stars. Individual shapes were hard to make out, but there were so many of them, so impossibly many. Daniel had called them. He had sent a beacon into the void and invited them to come. Now they were coming, and Earth was directly in their path. "What have I done?" he whispered. Admiral was already thinking ahead. "They are leaving. That is good, but we have a new problem now. We invited the swarm here. We need to convince them we are not the enemy." "How do we do that?" Daniel asked. "We do not even know what they are." "Spoke up. The probe data. Doctor analyzed it. The swarm only attacks species that have shown aggression and expanded beyond their home world. Earth has done neither. Maybe they will just pass us by." "Maybe is not good enough," Daniel replied. "We need to be sure." He looked at the screens showing the retreating fleet and the approaching swarm. Earth was trapped between 2 forces, either of which could destroy humanity without effort. But at least now they had a chance. Though we're running. The first part of the plan had worked. Now they just had to survive the second part. "Get me," Daniel ordered. "We have one more mission." The most dangerous mission any human had ever attempted was about to begin. The Horizon launched for the second time, carrying the last hope of humanity into the darkness between stars. Captain sat at the controls, his hands steady even though his heart was pounding. Behind him sat Tors, Price, and Doctor. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing that they would probably not return. "Course set for the Swarm Center Mass," announced. "Flight time approximately 11 hours. 11 hours, said quietly. "That is a long time to fly towards something that could destroy us in a second." "Then let us hope they do not want to destroy us," replied. She was working on her computer preparing the message they would send. It was not a demand or a threat like they had sent. It was an introduction, a story, the story of Earth. The plan was simple but terrifying. They would fly into the heart of the swarm and broadcast humanity's entire history, every war they had fought, every peace they had made, every song they had sung and every story they had told, everything that made humans human. They would lay themselves bare before this ancient force and hope that it found them worthy of mercy. "Why do you think they made it?" asked as they flew. "The swarm, I mean. Why would anyone build something like this?" Had been thinking about that question for days. The probe data suggests the swarm is very old, millions of years old. I think they were built by a civilization that wanted to protect the galaxy from species like the conquerors, destroyers. The swarm hunts them down and eliminates them before they can spread too far. "Like an immune system," said, "killing infections before they can hurt the body." "Exactly, but immune systems can make mistakes. They can attack healthy cells too. We have to hope the swarm recognizes that Earth is not a threat." Hours passed. The swarm grew larger on their sensors. Individual shapes became visible. They were not machines in the traditional sense. They were something between living and mechanical, grown rather than built. Each one was different, adapted for different tasks. Some were small and fast, scouts that raced ahead of the main group. Others were massive, the size of moons, carrying weapons that could crack planets. "They are beautiful," said softly. "In a terrible way, they are beautiful." The first scouts reached the horizon when they were still hours from the center. Small shapes circled the human ship, scanning it with energy beams that made the hull vibrate. Held his course, trusting that any sudden movement would be seen as hostile. "They are curious," observed. "They have probably never seen anything like us before, a small ship flying toward them instead of running away." The scouts did not attack. They watched and followed and scanned, but they did not fire. The horizon continued deeper into the swarm. After 11 hours of flying, they reached the center. A massive structure floated there, larger than anything they had built. It pulsed with energy and light and had the strange feeling that it was watching them, not with eyes exactly, but watching. "That is the command intelligence," said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "That is what controls the swarm." "Broadcasting now," announced. Her fingers flew across her console, sending everything they had prepared. Images of Earth from space, showing blue oceans and green forests. Videos of humans living their lives, working and playing and loving and fighting. Music from every culture, from ancient drums to modern symphonies. Stories written thousands of years ago and stories written last week. Everything that humanity had ever been. The broadcast lasted for hours. All the while the swarm watched and listened. The massive intelligence at the center did not move or respond. It simply received. When the broadcast ended, they waited. Seconds felt like years. His hand hovered over the emergency jump controls, ready to flee if the swarm decided to destroy them. Then the intelligence responded. It was not a voice exactly. It was a pattern of light and energy that somehow translated into meaning, worked frantically to decode it. "It is communicating," she said. It is actually communicating with us. What is it saying? Demanded. Listened for a long moment. Then she looked up with tears in her eyes. It says we are young. It says we have made mistakes, but we have not spread our violence beyond our world. It says we are not the enemy. It says we can go. The relief in the cockpit was overwhelming. Laughed out loud, a sound of pure joy, put her head in her hands and wept. Just stared at the massive intelligence, hardly able to believe they were still alive. But the message was not finished. There is more, said. It is giving us something, coordinates, 3 sets of coordinates. Looked at the data streaming into their computer. Her eyes went wide. These are star systems, habitable worlds. The swarm is giving us the locations of 3 planets where humans could live, empty worlds waiting for colonization. A gift, said softly. We came here expecting to die, and they are giving us a gift. The swarm began to move, shifting course around Earth rather than through it. The billions of shapes that made up the hunting force flowed past the small human ship like a river around a stone. They were continuing their pursuit of the who had fled hours ago and were probably still running. Turned the horizon around and began the long flight home. Admiral Laura was waiting when they landed. Daniel Carter stood beside her, looking older than he had a week ago. The weight of the decisions he had made showed on his face. 3 cities destroyed, millions dead, but billions survived. They let you go, said. It was not a question. They did more than that, replied. He handed her a data chip. They gave us a future. Over the next few days, the world slowly began to recover. The fleet was gone, chased by the swarm into the depths of space. Earth was safe, at least for now. The coordinates the swarm had provided were confirmed by astronomers. 3 planets, all capable of supporting human life, all within reach of new ships that Earth would now have the chance to build. Humanity's future was not limited to one small world anymore. Daniel Carter stood on a hilltop outside the emergency bunker, watching the sun set. The sky was clear for the first time since they had arrived. No massive ship blocking the light. No shadow of alien conquest hanging over them. Admiral joined him. They are calling you a hero, you know, the man who saved humanity. Daniel shook his head. I am the man who got 3 cities destroyed. Millions of people died because of my plan. And billions lived. They would have taken 1 billion as slaves and stripped our planet bare. Then they would have left us to face the swarm alone without any understanding of what was coming. You found a way to fight back. You found a way to make them run. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. We told them to run, he finally said, and for once someone listened. Far above them, the stars were coming out. Among those stars were 3 new worlds waiting for human settlers. Among those stars was an ancient intelligence that had judged humanity and found it worthy of survival. Among those stars was a future that seemed impossible just days ago. Humanity had taken its first step into the galaxy, not as conquerors not as victims like the species that had enslaved. They had entered the galactic stage as survivors, as fighters, as a people who refused to surrender even when faced with impossible odds. The Empire had demanded tribute. They had expected a primitive species to kneel and beg for mercy. They had not expected humanity to find their weakness and use it against them. They had not expected to be the ones running. Somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Al was still fleeing from the swarm. He would spend the rest of his life running, never forgetting the small blue world that had dared to defy him, never forgetting the species that had turned his own fear into a weapon. On Earth, the work of rebuilding began. Paris, Tokyo, and would rise again, monuments to those who had fallen and to those who had survived. New ships would be built to reach the gifted worlds. A new chapter of human history was beginning. And it started with 5 words that would be remembered forever. Flee while you still can. The end.